Hey, everybody. Welcome to Postcards to the Universe. I'm Melissa. So, I wanted to share something today. Have you ever reached a point where you're doing all the things you're supposed to do and yet nothing seems to be happening? Like, in fact, if I'm being really honest, I have been there more than once. A few years ago, I was sitting at my desk surrounded by my photographs, my stack of journals, my oracle cards, and enough unfinished creative projects to last 3 lifetimes. And I remember staring at my computer screen and thinking, what am I doing wrong? I was creating, I was showing up, I was doing interviews, I was posting content, I was putting my heart into everything I created, and yet it felt like the universe had put me on hold. You know that feeling, you know what I'm talking about, when you keep planting seeds but nothing seems to be growing. Well, that's where I was. Let me shut my little phone off. That's where I was. And fear loves moments like that. Fear doesn't usually show up when everything is going great. No, that's never when it shows up. Fear shows up when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you're comparing yourself to everyone else, when you're wondering if maybe it's time to quit. And fear started talking, not loudly. Fear rarely needs to yell. Think about that one. It whispered, maybe you're wasting your time. Maybe you're too late. Maybe nobody cares. Maybe your dream isn't meant to happen. And if you've ever had thoughts like that, let me tell you something. You are not alone. Because even people who teach manifestation, spirituality, and hope still have moments where fear comes knocking on the door. The difference is whether we invite it in and let it stay or not. So one afternoon, I was shuffling my oracle deck, not because I needed content, not because I was filming a video. I simply just needed guidance. I do this a lot. I shuffle my cards almost every day. I needed reassurance. I needed something. And one card slid out of the pack. This one. I choose hope over fear. Why is that blue? Oh, there we go. I choose hope over fear. This is the card that I chose. I looked at it and I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was annoyingly accurate. I set the card on my desk and went about my day. And the next morning, I saw the same phrase again, not on the card. I saw it somewhere else. Then later that week, a guest on my show said something almost identical. Then a book I was listening to, because I listen to books, was referencing hope in the face of uncertainty. The message kept showing up. And whenever that happens, I have learned to pay attention, because spirit has a way of repeating itself when we're not listening. The truth was, I wasn't lacking faith. I wasn't lacking talent. I wasn't lacking ideas. What I was lacking was trust. I was trusting fear more than I was trusting hope. And that is really a difficult realization, because fear feels almost comfortable. It feels practical. It feels logical. Fear presents evidence, right? We can find all the points of evidence when we're afraid. We can see it in, the bank accounts, the setbacks, the disappointments. Fear loves evidence. I can show you all the evidence of why I'm afraid. But hope doesn't work that way. Hope asks us to believe before we see. Hope asks us to keep going when there's no guarantee. Hope asks us to trust what is happening beneath the surface. And that is so much harder, so much harder. A few days later, something happened. Nothing dramatic, no lightning bolt moments, no $1 million lottery wins or opportunities. No angel appeared in my living room, or that white cat I see jumped in front of me, started talking to me, although that would have been nice. Instead, I was just taking a walk. I was running errands and I was taking a walk, and my mind was racing with all the things that weren't working. I got to remind myself I do that too. And suddenly I noticed a tiny flower growing through a crack in the sidewalk. And I stopped and I stared at it. Of all the places to grow, in the concrete, in this ungodly heat we're having right now. There was no room. The conditions were terrible. And yet there it was, thriving. And I remember thinking, that's what hope looks like. Hope doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Hope grows anyway. And that flower became a message, one that I carried with me. What if things are growing even when I can't see them? What if the universe is working behind the scenes? What if my job isn't to control the outcome? That's a hard one for me. What if my job is simply to continue to show up? Little by little, I stopped focusing on what wasn't happening. Instead, I focused on what I could do. I could create one more piece of art. I could make one more photograph. I could write one more page. I could record one more episode. I could have another conversation. I could trust one more day, not because I knew, any of it would work. I didn't, but because hope feels so much better than fear. And, time passes, months pass, weeks pass, something interesting starts to happen. I started noticing more opportunities I'd been asking for were quietly arriving. Not always the way I expected, not always on my timeline. And when they were arriving, it could be a new connection, a new guest introduction, an unexpected invitation, a meaningful email, a door opening previously where there had only been a wall. And I realized something. Fear had been measuring progress only by visible results. Hope was measuring progress by who I was becoming. Fear wanted proof and hope wanted trust. Fear wanted certainty and hope wanted possibility. And every day I had a choice. Which voice would I listen to? The one telling me to give up, to quit, or the one reminding me why I started? Excuse me. So today, whenever I pull the affirmation card that says I choose hope over fear, this one, I understand it differently. It's not asking us to ignore reality. It's not asking us to pretend everything is perfect. It's asking us to remember that fear is only one voice. It doesn't get to make every decision. It doesn't get to write every chapter. And it certainly doesn't get to decide what is possible, because some of the most beautiful things in life begin long before we can see them. A seed beneath the soil, a dream inside your heart, a prayer you whispered months ago, a manifestation still making its way toward you. Sorry, my fan is blowing because I'm always warm, so the hair tickles my face. A manifestation is still making its way toward you. The universe doesn't always work on our schedule. Believe me, I wish it did. I've checked many times, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is continuing before you have evidence, continuing before you have certainty, continuing before you know how the story ends, right? So if you're listening to this today and you're feeling discouraged, if fear has been whispering in your ear, if you're wondering whether your dreams matter, I want to remind you of something. The fact that you have a dream at all means there's a reason for it. The fact that you have a dream at all means there's a reason for it. The fact that your heart keeps pulling you towards something means there's a reason for that too. Maybe you don't need all the answers today. Maybe you only need the next step. Maybe all you need to do is make the same choice I made. The choice that became an affirmation, the choice that became a reminder, the choice that continues to guide me whenever doubt appears. I choose hope over fear. This is just a visual representation of it for me. Somebody sent me their postcard and I photographed it. And this is my interpretation of what that looks like. So perhaps that's exactly what the universe is asking you to choose today too for yourself. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that was helpful. And I will see you next time. Do something that you love. Do something that brings you joy. Do something that you're a little afraid to try and see what happens. All right. If you like the message and you like the video, please, I would love it if you would, give me a like, subscribe, comment, Tell me something that you're afraid of that you are trying for the first time, right? Maybe it's something that you finally talked yourself into trying. I'd love to hear about it. Okay, everybody. See you next time. Bye.